reasons is what I will mention now. When you ask reason for which one, I've mentioned severally, even in the previous section, I mentioned it. That all those things that you do, maybe in the organization, you just join them, and what they are doing is different from what you are bringing. It may end in witch hunt or discrimination for you. Maybe what you are doing or what you are recommending or the action you are taking is stopping them from what they have been benefiting. They could even be seeing you as daring. For instance, let me give you this one. There are so many of them. I'll be giving you one after the other as the class progresses. There was an audit we did in an organization. We noticed that the head of HR had unfettered power. The payroll, he was the only one that could have access to it. Once he finished, he would give to finance to upload. Nobody checked him. During the audit, we asked so many things he could not give us. He would always tell us that MD said should not release the payroll. But we eventually found out that there were two people that were transferred to a subsidiary. They were on the same grade. One was the head of finance, another one was a deputy to the head of the subsidiary. This man single-handedly increased the salary of the head of finance and did nothing to the salary of the deputy head of the subsidiary. We asked him approval, he couldn't give us. After 2 or 3 weeks, he came with a letter unsigned by the MD. At first, he said they had a written agreement that once they move somebody to a new responsibility, they will increase their salary. So how come you increase the salary of a junior? Because to me, head of finance should be junior to the second in command. Somebody who served as the deputy of the subsidiary. You didn't touch his salary. There was no approval. He said you had unwritten practice. Was the MD aware? No. We reported that. The person we reported to at that time said we should not add it to the audit. We should remove it as a separate investigation. There was another one. This same person. Somebody was sick of kidney disease or so. He went to the hospital. He gave the person a written letter he had prepared for the person to sign that he was resigning. Somebody on the hospital bed. The day he did that, we learned that the system of that person shut down. The person collapsed. Somebody was on hospital bed, contrary to policy. The policy said that if you are sick and you cannot come to the office, 3 months you will collect full salary. The next 3 months you will collect half pay. Then after that 3 months, that's the second 3 months, you will no longer be collecting salary until you are fit and resume. This man took a letter of resignation to the person that was sick, asking the person to resign in that organization. When they brought the man, the wife brought the man to the company. That was when we heard. I was part of the committee that investigated that, and we submitted our recommendation to the management for their decision. I think they now form a DC after that. They were also using one application. Out of 7 modules, they were using 5 modules, and they were paying for 7 modules. Exorbitant fee. This is an application that I had used before, and I know how much they were paying. We recommended that they should not pay until they gave us plan on how to use the other 2 modules, and they should also review the payment. We became the enemy of this man. In fact, during my confirmation, they sent a letter from my office. They were not doing background checking. They were not checking anything, checking staff results, staff previous work experience. From your previous company, they were not checking. It was as a result of our audit that they started, and they were doing it to those of us that joined at that time. They responded in my office to say, okay, well, this guy was having a loan. This man blew it out of proportion. Instead of calling me to ask, the mentality was, you have been old cashing thief. You have been exposing us. It's time to deal with you. The boss had to scold him for that action. It was his action at that time that made the MD of that company to buy over the loan. The man bought over the loan. Meanwhile, this loan he was trying to escalate as if, those people, they didn't tell him it was loan. They said they could not respond to my confirmation based on certain things. Maybe he was thinking it was fraud. I don't know. He tried to make issue out of it. Why? Because of what we had done, what we had exposed. Whereas I was not even due for confirmation. The confirmation was a year. The time we are talking about was just 6 months. We had just spent 6 months in that company. The loan that was talking about will finish in the next 2 months. It will finish before we are due for confirmation. So even if the company had not bought over the loan, I will still have finished paying the loan before I'll be due. So that is what these kind of things can do. It can make people, it can blind the people's sense of judgment. It can cause discrimination, which hunting. People can do what they are not supposed to do in retaliation. When they believe that you have stepped on their toe, you stop them from their source of income. Another example